Hi, folks. We're back talking about immigration. We're discussing some issues that people who want to immigrate must seriously consider. Um, I encourage you to check the part one that I've put up with regards to immigration, with some very practical considerations to consider. Nothing hectic, but things that if you're already working as a professional and you're working for a multinational company, things that you might consider, especially if the multinational you are working for is actually the company that is headquartered at the country that you want to actually live in. Just look at that video that I did. This video, I just want to discuss some issues about, because on the issue of immigration, I find that immigration, obviously, most people don't want to leave their countries, is what I found. And even amongst the people who want to immigrate, they do so for different reasons. They have different motivations, and they have different wants and needs that they have. So it might be difficult to give advice that works for everyone involved, because people have different needs, which is why it is important for you to consult, get advice, professional advice when it comes to these things. There are a lot of resources available now. There are immigration companies who provide consultancy services for people who want to immigrate that are actually tailored to meet your specific needs and your family's needs. But some of the things that I would just like to go into, like for instance, is that firstly you need to decide why you immigrating, and then once you've decided that question, there might be like one up to three or four, maybe more reasons of why you're immigrating, and then there are also the questions of what are your non-negotiables, and then you can go through what are those, and then you have to look in terms of what are the good to haves, and then once you have that, and then you start looking at countries and seeing which ones actually best suited for your particular needs. And so, for in my particular case, I'll just make an example in terms of why immigration for me. The reasons were financially motivated, actually. Finances, wanting to be in a place where I can earn more money, not just in terms of once you convert it, in terms of the currency differences, but in terms of on 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 an absolute basis, am I earning more money? And number two, issues around places where I can pay as little of income taxes as possible. And then there are quite a few places in the world that you can look at for that particular purpose. And then places where I would have relative freedom. I said relative freedom because there isn't a place anywhere in the world where freedom is absolute. No matter how much people tell you that their countries are free, it's often not true that they're absolutely free. So there is always relative freedom, free relative to something, relative to what. So that's also an issue that I considered. And then for me, the big issue is the issue of more of being able to have social mobility, and that's a big one. And there are very few nations in the world where you can have that. One of those would be obviously the United States of America, and another would be China. So even though, because those are the countries that produce dollar millionaires at a higher rate than everyone else in the world. But then that issue is not the only issue that one has to look at. So, and then some of the things that people have to look at are the issues of, well, for me, for instance, is the issue of weather. I think for a lot of people, even before, they might not be thinking about that before they move, but it's something that can actually be quite a deal breaker. People have immigrated to cold areas like Europe and stayed for like a year or two, and they've decided, no, I can't do this because of the weather, and then they had to move back home. So you need to think about weather before you leave wherever you are to where you are, to know which weather is actually suitable for you, which sort of climate is suitable for you. And then with that said, I think for me, it became very obvious that Europe would be out of the question, or most of Europe would be out of the question because of the weather considerations. Maybe with exceptions of maybe Spain and Portugal and Greece, which are not necessarily warm but are warmer than than the rest of mainland Europe and even Eastern Europe, because everything now is the issue of you are balancing things. You are not looking at things in terms of absolutes, but in terms of trades off. What are you getting? What are you losing? How is this compared to another alternative? And then also Europe was not an option for me because of the high tax rates, which most European countries are known for. 50% tax rates, 55% tax rate, sometimes upwards of 60%. So that was totally out of the question. And places like Canada as well were out of the question because of weather, number one, and number two, the high tax rates. And so these areas in particular for me were out of the question as well, because there is no upward mobility in Europe and or in Canada. People don't have, there aren't opportunities for people to grow and to grow businesses and to come from a poor background and to become a dollar millionaire or a euro millionaire, which is basically plus or minus the same thing. There aren't those kind of opportunities. There aren't those kind of opportunities because of how these economies are so heavily regulated and so overly burdened by taxes, which makes it very difficult for people to actually grow. No one says, "Whew, I'm leaving Botswana. I'm moving to Canada so that I can become rich." It just doesn't work like that. Or I'm moving to the United Kingdom so that I can become rich. It also doesn't work like that. People might go there to get better opportunities and they might earn more money, but they are not going to get rich because of how high the income taxes are. It's just, and also how expensive the living expenses, how high the living expenses are, which is something I forgot to mention. The issue of living costs, cost of living, is a huge factor that you need to also think about before you make a decision about where to go or whether to go, which is something that if you consult a professional immigration consulting company, they will assist you in terms of getting a greater sense of what are the living costs and the cost of living in various areas in the world. And so, but over and above those services that you need to pay for, you need to do your own research about these areas. So for me in particular, areas that were attractive and are still attractive regardless of where I am now, places that I will always consider going to is places like the Middle East, the UAE, Qatar, even Saudi Arabia actually, because firstly, I mean, if I go there, chances are I won't pay any income taxes. Company will more likely than not provide me with accommodation. They're even more likely to give me a company car, and they'll just pretty much they take care of you. And so almost everything that you have, just that you are earning, is actually going to you to actually build your net worth, which is the reason, goes to the reason for me in terms of why immigration, which is not necessarily the reason for everyone. Some people are immigrating, they just want to run away from a country that doesn't function properly, maybe like South Africa, and they want to go to a country that has stuff that functions, like the United Kingdom or Italy or Canada, regardless of whether they are going to be able to own anything and build anything. As long as they're in a country where things function, for them that's enough. If that's you, be my guest, go for it. But I know people who are earning six-figure earners in Canada who don't own anything. other than a car, because it is just impossible to own anything in Canada. Canada is a horrible place to be in terms of when you, from my perspective of I want to build wealth. So it might not be a horrible place for you who might not be thinking about building wealth. You might be thinking about, I just want a place where things function and it's relatively safe, and I'm not going to have any problems with load shedding or whatever, water shortages and whatever, problems with potholes on the roads, problems with out of control crime for a lot of women. So then Canada might be the place for you, or the UK might be the place for you. I know black women who have moved from South Africa, gone to Europe, like who are in Cambridge, Manchester, London, Oxford. And they are very happy because of how safe it is, even though they are not able to build any wealth. Because it's very difficult to build wealth in the United Kingdom. But maybe that's not what's important to them. So it's not to say that they are not getting any benefit from moving there. It's just that the benefits that are priority for them are not a priority for me. My primary issue is wealth creation, and their primary issue might be safety and a functioning public transport, which is obviously something that we know is there in the UK, and all those sort of things. And just having a life that is not inconvenienced by bad service delivery. Okay, I understand that. We all want that. But I think for me, that's not really the primary concern. And then there are people who are concerned about issues of free healthcare, which is obviously there's free healthcare in the UK, the NHS, there's free healthcare in Canada. Some people who want those things or prioritize those things, they don't mind paying 50% income taxes. But I do mind paying 50% income taxes. I want to keep as much of the money that I earn as possible. So my considerations are different from, so which is why like Florida and Texas were obvious choices for me. But that's a topic for another day. Texas obviously for me would always be my number one choice. Regardless, of any place in the world, Texas and Florida will always be number one and number two. Not necessarily in a particular order. Sometimes I prefer Florida, sometimes I prefer Texas, but more often than not, Texas is my number one and Florida is my number two, and there are good reasons for it. And a lot of it has to do in terms of the things that I've already spoken about. And then there's the issue there's Australia, there's New Zealand, which these are areas that for me I will always be areas that I'm open to going to, because I know that those areas have good weather, the income taxes are not too high, the cost of living is compared to, because the issue of cost of cost of living or living cost is the issue of compared to what. So I would say it's not as bad as New York City or San Francisco or Los Angeles or London, for instance. So, or Edinburgh. Yeah, so when you, because I think almost every place in the West is sort of notorious for high cost of living situation, but these areas don't have comparable living costs. There are areas that are cheaper than others in terms of the cost of living. Even if you look at Europe, for instance, Berlin is a lot more affordable compared to London. In fact, Germany in general is a lot more affordable compared to the UK or France. And then you look in areas like in Europe, in general, like East Europe is a lot more affordable than mainland Europe. But there is an issue of how much can you earn in Hungary or Estonia or Lithuania, Latvia, Romania, compared to if you are in Germany, the UK, France, Italy, and those places, or how much can you earn there compared to if you are maybe in Canada. So there's always life in general is a matter of trade-offs. You get something, you trade it off with something else. That's just how it is in life in general. And so when I'm saying that these are the issues that people need to consider, I seriously mean that you need to consider in terms of what is important to you. What is it that you need? Not in terms of what I need. What is it that you need? And based off on that is the decision to immigrate and leave Cape Town or Johannesburg or Durban and go to Montreal or Toronto. Is that the wise decision? And that's only you, after getting advice from your family and the financial advisors and the immigration consultants who advise you on these things, can you make the decision to say that is this the best decision for you? And also sometimes it's not an issue of whether to immigrate or not. Sometimes it's a question of saying immigrate to where, and the question of to where is a question that only you can answer because your needs are unique to you. So that's what I've actually realized. That this immigration issue is not a one size fit all thing. Like, I have friends who are doing very well in Cape Town, and I have friends who are doing very well in Johannesburg who have no interest at all in immigrating, no interest. And we used to have these debates a couple of years ago about this thing until I realized that actually, you know what? It's not that I'm right or that they're wrong or that they're right and that I'm wrong. It's a matter of what is right for you. And because people just want different things. Yeah, so even when people actually have an interest in immigration, in terms of how that looks like, is also a matter of what's best for this particular person. Some people will want to immigrate for a couple of years and want to come back home. Some people will want to actually maintain their primary domicile to be in South Africa and be working in in three continents. I know people who are doing that. That's very difficult, and it's not advisable for people who have families. It can be done, yes. Someone who is in New York City on Monday and then they are in London on Wednesday and then they're in Johannesburg on Saturday. There are people who live like that. It's not as romantic as people make it seem. It's very tiring. All of those flying hours that people have to do, it's taxing on your body, it's taxing on your personal life, on your private life. So people just need to make decisions in terms of what it is that works for you, what it is that you actually want. And some of these things might, okay, in this season of my life, this is what's going to be the best. And then maybe in the long term, I might want to maintain my domicile to be in South Africa, or it might be I want to maintain it to be in the United Kingdom, or wherever it is. Just let me know what you think, what our opinions are on the comments below. But please don't comment about stupid comments about, oh, life is so unaffordable abroad. You don't know that. No, you don't know that. Unaffordable way. Unaffordable way. In London or in Galveston. In New York City or in El Paso. Explain. When you say unaffordable, where exactly do you mean? In Doha or in Los Angeles? In Dubai or in San Francisco? So you need to explain what you mean with unaffordable in this city, this country, because there's also a lot of ignorance when it comes to these things. Get information so that you don't start saying stupid shit like that. Just understand that as much as, for instance, South Africa is not uniform, when someone were to say, someone maybe who lived in Cape Town say, oh, South Africa is so expensive because they lived in Cape Town. They don't know what are the affordability ranges in South Africa because all they know is Cape Town. Or someone could say, oh, South Africa is such a great place in terms of cost of living wise because they've lived in Johannesburg and maybe Durban. And then when you immigrate to South Africa and then you move to Cape Town or you move to some crazy place like that, and then you are actually, it's absolutely insane. Yeah, so get information, be educated, and make decisions that are best for you. Cool. See you next time, folks.